Up to SEED colleagues. Some original characters will appear. Even those who have not read the original work can smoothly flip through it. The number of female leads is uncertain depending on the development of the plot. Actually, I would rather write a single story with the female lead. Finally, newcomers and new books seeking attention. I will try my best to ensure that the IQ and behavioral logic of all supporting role and protagonists are online. Dear readers, do you also not want my young seedling to die young before it grows? Keywords of the novel. Gundam Seeds Tomorrow Poetry without pop-ups, Gundam Seeds Tomorrow Poetry TXT Complete Collection Download, Gundam Seeds Tomorrow Poetry Latest Chapter Reading. Chapter 1. Spy Who Exposes Identity. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Spy Who Exposes Identity. A silver-white hourglass floating in space. Using the thinnest middle section as the fulcrum, slowly rotating the massive structure. Composed of 2 opposing cones and 3 mirrors used to collect sunlight. Using organic matter as the main material, the bottom of the rotating cone is a residential area, and the high-tension string cables covering the outer wall are almost filled with self-repairing glass. The radiance reflected by these silicon particles forms a shimmering silver halo, and nearly 100 such satellites are arranged in the pitch-black darkness, appearing particularly magnificent. This is a new generation of space colonial satellites called the Libra Bar, belonging to the kingdom of the adjusters. P.L.N.T. While Lin Qingyu picked up clear water and patted it on his face. Xiao Qing. Lin Qingyu lifted his wet cheeks and looked into the mirror in front of him. Inside, a strange and youthful handsome face was reflected. It's been 3 days. Every time he wakes up, he hopes that everything is just a dream, but the face and memories in the mirror constantly remind him that this is not a dream, it is reality. I am no longer the same Lin Qingyu on Earth. But rather Ino Kamal, a regulator born on Earth in a different world and forced to immigrate with his grandparents to the planet agricultural satellite Uniast 7 due to the oppression of the Blue Osmanthus. 5 months ago on February 14th. The Earth Union launched a nuclear bomb on the agricultural satellite Uniast 7, which is home to its elders, resulting in 243,721 deaths. My own relatives also died in that nuclear explosion. On the following February 18th. Surviving from studying abroad, I joined Zaft with a hatred for Earth Union and enrolled in the command department of the military academy affiliated with Plant, where I have been studying ever since. Unfortunately, all of the above is false. My true identity is that of an information thief trained by the Eurasian Federation from a young age, belonging to the Earth United 8th Special Service. In other words, I am a spy, a special spy targeting Zaft. And their parents are loyal members of the Blue Cosmos. So I should be a spy trained by the Eurasian Federation, but also loyal to the Blue Cosmos. Bang! Recalling his identity information and the situation in this world, Lin Qingyu, who had become Ino Kamal, raised his hand and punched the mirror. Regret. If there is a choice, I will definitely not choose to stay up all night, so I won't inexplicably run here. The information and images in his memory helped Ino determine the world. Seed, a world of war arising from disputes between natural persons and adjusters. Among them, Plant represents the adjuster, and Earth Union represents natural persons. The Earth Union includes the Atlantic Federation, the Eurasian Federation, the United Nations, the OB, and the South African Unity Community. Almost covering the entire Earth, with a total population starting at 10 billion. And Plan is an artificial colonial satellite group located in the L5 Lagrange on the day, with a total population of about 60 million. The grievances between the adjuster and the natural person are actually very simple and clear. Adjusters refer to humans whose genetic genes have been artificially adjusted, improved, and optimized. Compared to ordinary natural people, adjusters perform better on average in terms of intelligence and physical fitness. They learn quickly, react quickly, have immunity to many diseases, and usually have good appearance. You can even compare the adjuster to a genius among natural people, a genius nurtured through artificial intervention for sustainability. And this led to a period of time when wealthy and powerful individuals mostly chose to genetically adjust their offspring. Having money, power, outstanding abilities, and quick thinking, the adjusters under countless BUFs quickly blocked the living space and upward path of ordinary natural people. Except for a few talented natural individuals with genetic mutations, ordinary natural individuals are completely overwhelmed by adjusters. The situation where the strong are always strong and the weak are always weak reflects the utmost flexibility. It is precisely in such an environment that the discrimination and resentment of natural persons towards regulators have reached a critical point, and have completely evolved into a large-scale racial war sweeping the world. Behind them, nuclear bombs flew everywhere, and various destructive weapons were dragged out to shoot at each other, fearing that the enemy would not be extinct. And now that this war has been completely ignited, I wore it myself. The key is to get me an identity as a joint Earth spy. What's even more frustrating is that my 3 superiors were caught and killed last month. My predecessor was poisoned and assassinated 3 days ago and died in the dormitory. What is Chinmu? This is Chinmu. From an ordinary Earthling to a spy, he is still a spy who has exposed his identity. Second Olympics. Bang. Angry Ino punched the mirror in the restroom. What happened? My roommate Satch Lant, who heard some noise in the dormitory, put down his book and ran in. Looking at the shattered mirror, Saki quickly asked, Ino. Who are you? It's nothing, there was a mosquito just now. Listening to his roommate's inquiry, Yaino restrained his thoughts and withdrew his bloody fist, forcing a smile as he replied. Mosquitoes. Here. Saki's face showed surprise. Does plant have a mosquito-like creature? Maybe I read it wrong. Yaino gave himself a random excuse. Okay, but should you handle your hands? Saki didn't ask too many questions upon hearing this, as everyone had those days when they were in a bad mood. Could you please bring over the medical kit? Yaino looked at his right hand, which was bleeding profusely, and after some thought, he gave up the idea of losing too much blood. I'll get you a medical kit. Saki's lips twitched slightly as he turned around and left the dormitory. Actually, he wanted Yaino to go to the medical room. As she watched Saki leave, Ino sat down on her bed. Yes, I definitely can't go back. After all, I don't have the courage to play with suicide. So the only thing I can do is to continue living with this body. But this is undoubtedly a very difficult thing. During these 3 days, he was constantly worried about his small life. Even when eating, I only dare to eat fast food from the mall, fearing that I might accidentally follow in the footsteps of my predecessor. But he thought for 3 days but couldn't come up with a solution. This is the hinterland of Plant, and his previous home was also killed by Zaft. He is now completely isolated and helpless. As for other spies, in order to maintain confidentiality and prevent involvement, Earth's joint spies operate independently. Many times, even if 2 spies appear face-to-face, they do not know that the other is of the same kind. So the path of relying on peers did not exist from the beginning. Relying on Earth Union in order to prevent identity exposure, I do not have any contact information for Earth Union, and even providing intelligence is handed over by my previous employer. So I can't directly contact my previous family. Surrender and betray. Due to the exposure of my identity, I am unable to surrender and survive now. No one will believe that a spy who has already revealed their identity has defected, and the other party has directly taken action. What attitude is already obvious? It's not possible to surrender, seek help, or escape no solution. Yaino, who had summarized the answer more than once, collapsed into bed with a bitter smile. In fact, he also knows that he has no way to break the deadlock. After all, a spy who exposes his identity in the enemy's hinterland is basically no different from being sentenced to death. The predecessor also lost his life as a result. I have also placed my hopes on the system or the golden finger. But 3 days have passed and he still hasn't received any feedback. The only golden finger is my rough memory of this anime and the general direction of the war. But the problem is that this thing is of no help to my current self. If you can sign, continue writing. If you can't sign, you can only stay in place. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Can MS drivers survive? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Can MS drivers survive? Saki's movements are very fast. But after a while, he entered the dormitory with a medical kit. What's wrong with you lately? Why are you looking absent-minded? Saki bandaged Ino's wound while speaking out to inquire. I'm homesick. Yaino calmly replied. Listening to Ino's answer, Saki's movements paused slightly before silently continuing to bandage. Yaino's experience and situation have been heard by the students of the command department. There are not many people in the current military academy who have encountered the same situation as him, and the most well-known one is Aslan Sara, the son of Senator Sara. Faced with such classmates, these happy people have no qualification or ability to comfort. By the way, tomorrow morning there will be a tactical analysis class on New Star Attack and Defense Battle by Instructor Natel. Saki changed the topic for a moment. New Star Offensive and Defense Battle. Yaino's face showed confusion. Not for this vocabulary, but for this speed. Today is July 21st, E70. The New Star Offensive and Defense War refers to the war that began on June 14 between the Earth United Forces and the resource satellite, New Star, under the management of the East Asian United Nations in the L4 region, led by Zaft, also known as the Plant Army. Both sides failed to gain a decisive advantage in that war and engaged in small-scale confrontations for almost a month. During this period, most of L4's colonial satellite groups were damaged. It was not until a few days before their predecessor was poisoned that the Earth Alliance chose to abandon Nova and let Zaft officially take over it. You have been absent for 3 consecutive days, and Instructor Natel has already had an objection to you, Sachai continued. What's there? Okay. Yaino was just about to say what the other party could have, but on second thought, this is not an ordinary university on Earth. But during the war, he was still a reserve officer under Zaft's command at the Advanced Military Academy. In this situation of continuous absence, the other party did not directly come to their door and cause trouble, which is already the end of the line. Alright, just don't get wet in the next 2 days. Saki also wrapped Ino's right hand. Your bandaging skills are a bit lackluster, not going to the medical department. Ino moved his bandaged right hand and was surprised by Sachai's ability. Medical department. I want to become a battlefield commander in the future. Saki, who was packing his medical kit, smiled and replied. Battlefield commander. Yaino couldn't help but feel speechless upon hearing these words. If this guy knew that the future battlefield would be dominated by Gundam, he wouldn't know what kind of mood it would be. Especially Kirida and their few livestock. When I looked at it, I didn't think so. But when I think about it now, Lakis and his team are really cheating. They only have a few Gundam and warships, which have left the battlefield scattered. What attitude are you having? Don't believe me. Saki found that Ino's attitude was somewhat incorrect. I said I believe it, do you believe it? Ino asked in response. What? Saki was surprised. However, it seems that MS is indeed a choice. Yaino suddenly thought of MS. Is it possible for me to survive if I become an MS driver and rush to the front-line battlefield? My spy identity should have been exposed. However, for some unknown reason, the other party did not choose to carry out a public assassination, but rather an assassination. Based on this situation, if I could become an MS driver and go to the front line, I might have a chance to escape the battlefield and survive. It's best to go to the battlefield on Earth, find a place to hide under your name for 1 or 2 years after leaving the battlefield, and it will be fine when the war ends. But there's also an issue with time. It is now July, with less than 2 months left until September graduation. How far can I go in this situation? The frontline battlefield is very dangerous. One careless person will be lost. I also need to constantly be wary of those who assassinate me, while ensuring that I can definitely go to Earth. Suddenly, Ino's eyes flashed with a gleam of light. I don't necessarily have to go to Earth. The Archangel. If I remember correctly, there are Gundam and Archangel on the neutral satellite belonging to OB or some other country. As long as you can reach the Archangel and reveal your identity, you can completely leave with the Archangel. However, this also involves another issue. How to prove one's identity. My information files are highly confidential, and the Archangel cannot verify my identity information at all. What if I get shot dead by the other party? To put it 10,000 steps back, even if Captain Ryao doesn't kill himself. The Archangel is ultimately part of the Atlantic Federation. And I am also a member of the Eurasian Federation. Do I belong to the Atlantic Federation or the Eurasian Federation? I was trained by the Eurasian Federation, but Blue Cosmos is also an Atlantic Federation. And to whom did I pass on intelligence as a spy? Upon careful consideration, I still don't know who took the intelligence I handed over. Ino. Just as Ino was lost in thought, Saki's voice came to his ears. How? Instructor Natel. Ino restrained his thoughts and looked at Saki, but his gaze quickly fell on the instructor standing next to Saki. Upon conditional launch, Ino quickly stood up and saluted. Sorry, I was distracted just now. After returning the salute, Instructor Natel said, Relax a bit. I heard you're sick, so I came to see you. Thank you, Instructor Natel, for your concern. Yaino quickly replied. What's wrong with your hand? Instructor Natel looked at Ino's bandaged right hand. I accidentally got scratched just now, Yaino explained. Upon hearing this, Natel nodded and continued, Pay attention to yourself. In 2 months, you will have to force yourself to graduate and go to the front line. You must hurry up to study. Yes. Perhaps due to physical memory, Ino's answer was resounding and powerful. You are the student I value the most. You have a high insight and talent for battlefield control. I hope you don't waste your talent. Instructor Natel is telling the truth. Of course, this is not incomprehensible. As a regulator trained from a young age, Ino's initial goal as a spy was to infiltrate high-ranking officials within Zaft. So at the age of 3, Ino had already started receiving various training far beyond her peers with nearly 1,000 companions. In the end, only a few of them left the base alive at the age of 15. Understood. Ino nodded. Remember to come and listen to tomorrow's tactical analysis class. You are already far behind. Instructor Natel finished speaking and patted Ino's shoulder, then turned around and left the dormitory. He came here to see his proud disciple. Yes. Instructor Natel, take your time. Ino saluted and bid farewell. After a while. It wasn't until Instructor Natel left that Saki appeared and said, It seems that Instructor Natel really likes you. Like me. Ino was surprised. Nonsense, it's okay when you're here. When you're not here, Instructor Natel has praised you more than once in class. It seems like we'll be rivals in the future. Saki is a bit sour. Although everyone is the same adjuster, why is this kid so special? Don't have any secondary illnesses, Instructor Natel has already liked you. Yaino is speechless about Saki's occasional secondary illness. Returning to the battlefield commander, when the time comes, you'll be done with whether the freedom is high or not. Driving MS may also live with Kira Yamato's compassion gun. Sitting on the flagship. That thing exploded and you didn't even have a place to run. Newcomers seek everything in new books, end of this chapter. Chapter 3. Military Academy F4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Military Academy F4 Zaft, full name Zodiac Alliance of Freedom Treaty, abbreviated as Zaft. At CE. In 68 AD, a military institution was established by the current Minister of Defense Patrick Sara in the name of Self-Defense, taking advantage of the Mandelbrot accident. However, only 2 years later, CE. In 70 years, Zaft relied on MS to transform into a military organization that was evenly matched with the Earth Alliance. Although Zaft is a substantial planned defense force, there is no established rank system, and in form, it is not a regular army but a militia organization, which can also be considered as the private army of Defense Commissioner Patrick Sara. Zaft's elite military academy, along with Zaft's headquarters, was also placed on the December colonial satellite in the city of Dyson Bell. Due to the MS training base, the Zaft Military Academy occupies a very large area. The early morning of the planned colonial satellite is very cool, and the artificial breeze brings a comfortable atmosphere. In this school, which is filled with handsome men and beautiful women, the ethereal singing of Lakes Klein echoes in the air of the campus. As a singer and also the only daughter of Siegel Klein, the chairman of the highest council of the plant. Lakes Klein had a high popularity and reputation among the people a long time ago. Miss Laces seems to be releasing a new song, I'm really looking forward to it. On the way to the classroom, Satch showed his love for Lakes Klein without reservation. Of course, Lakes Klein is indeed worthy of such feelings. In this war-torn world, Lakes Klein's songs provide spiritual support for many frontline soldiers. This is indeed one of the few good things. Yino nodded silently after listening, realizing that it is human nature to love beautiful things. Even though he had not met Lakes Klein himself, he had seen her face from various promotional channels and videos. It's really stunning. I don't know what Miss Lace's next song is. How did she meet them again? Saki's hopeful voice was visibly filled with disgust. Especially when paired with the expression on his face, it's as disgusting as if he had eaten a fly. How many of them are there? Yino's face showed confusion, not knowing what kind of wind this guy suddenly had. That's the ones over there. Saki whispered and pointed to the guys with hair of various colors not far away. White, blue, green, yellow, that's right, they are Isaac, Aslan, Nigel, and Diego, who have the reputation of colonial F4. They not only inherited the excellent abilities of their parents, but also. At the same time, it also has a position that ordinary adjusters cannot reach. The parents of the four are all members of the highest authority of the plant. The highest council of the plant. Among them, Aslan Sara is the only son of current Defense Secretary Patrick Sara. It is considered derogatory to say that one was born with a golden key. These guys seem a bit handsome. Ino also saw a real person for the first time. It has to be said that adjusters have talents in various aspects that ordinary natural people cannot match. For example, appearance and so on. Ha! Saki looked at Ino incredulously upon hearing the words. Is this guy really having no problem with his brain? The handsome thing has a useless use in plant. Isn't the adjuster in the plan handsome and beautiful? Unless his parents have some special quirks, that adjuster looks ugly. It's nothing. Ino also found himself having a problem with his thinking. After all, when it comes to being handsome, I am also one of the top tier in the entire group of adjusters. It seemed to have noticed Ino's gaze, and Aslan and others nodded at him from a distance. Ino nodded in response. In my memory, I have had several encounters with them due to the task, and my grades are also at the top level, so both parties are barely acquainted. These are really shallow guys, I don't know what the four of them have. Saki looked at F4, who was unknowingly surrounded by people, and his sour expression became even stronger. What did they do to you? Your tone is not quite right. Ino didn't quite understand Saki's brain circuits. Although Aslan LS held a high position due to his father's reasons, he is remembered as a very humble person, even known as the melancholic nobleman. Setting aside Aslan Sara. Even Isaac Cure, who looks down on everyone with his hair in his mouth, although a bit annoying, is not the kind of guy who bullies people casually. Even Isaac often helps other vulnerable adjusters stand out. The white and pure Nigel Amalfi is gentle and weak all day long, and will not bully anyone. As for the wheat-colored Diego Elsman, he is just a person who likes to talk nonsense. Overall, the four of them are not that difficult to get along with. Because I envy. Saki bluntly made Ino unable to refute. Minister Aslan Salsla's son, despite his excellent abilities and handsome appearance, is still Miss Lace's fiancé. Saki said sourly, "Tisk, why did he take care of all the good things?" Then you can really get a little sour. Yino was dumbfounded. Aslan Sara's template was indeed enough to make any peer's gum sour. If it weren't for knowing the future, Ino would also be one of the members with sore gums. To have status, to have ability and a wife. It is not an exaggeration to say that he is the son of fate. Speaking of which, it seems that you rarely express such negative emotions. Saki suddenly thought of Ino, who had hardly any negative emotions in his memory. Is that so? Upon hearing this, Ino frowned and thought for a moment, as if it was really like this. Yes, thinking about it now, you're really a bit abnormal. Saki felt that the more he thought about it, the more outrageous it became. You're not normal. You're leaving, class is about to start. Ino is too lazy to delve into this meaningless issue. After all, that was the predecessor rather than the author. And I have very important things to do today, so I don't have time to waste here. The tactical analysis class is somewhat similar to the reading comprehension of Earth language. Different from others in terms of enthusiasm. Yino only felt dull and uninteresting, unable to arouse any interest. However, it seems that instructor Natel really likes himself. In a course of only 90 minutes, Ino was called out to answer questions at least 10 times. That is to say, the predecessor had a strong foundation, and even if Ino had little interest, he could rely on the knowledge left over from his predecessor to answer questions fluently. Combined with my previous knowledge of Chinese reading comprehension, I was stunned by the fact that even instructor Natel was stunned. You seem to have changed a lot lately, right? After class, Saki found Ino immediately and looked at him with a somewhat eerie expression. What changes? Yino's face showed confusion. You used to answer questions based on standard answers, but now your answers are all based on various guesses and understandings, and you're saying it's clear. What's your situation? Saki was a bit puzzled. In the past, Ino was like a precision machine, executing everything strictly according to standard answers. But now it's different. Whether Ino answers questions or does things, he is no longer limited to the so-called correct answer, but rather an answer with his own emotions and thoughts. Everyone will change. If everything follows the rules, then what else do we need to do with our brains? Yino replied lightly. Hiss, you're not Ino. Ino, the one I know, wouldn't say such things. Who the hell are you? Saki looked at Ino incredulously upon hearing the words. Is this what Ino Kamal said? I am indeed not Ino Kamal, because E is the father of none. After Ino finished speaking, he ignored Saki's dull expression and turned around to leave the classroom. What Saki said just now reminded him of another thing. I don't know if it's because of my previous memory, but I do have some abnormal emotions in the past few days. Sometimes he even suspects that it was Lin Qingyu who crossed over and took over the body named Ino Kamal. It was Yino Kamal who gained the memory of the traveler Lin Qingyu. This is a very contradictory emotion. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Zaft also needs to change majors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Zaft also needs to change majors in the exclusive office of teachers and staff. Instructor Natel and 2 adjutants are organizing some confidential documents. The teachers you meet at any time in college may be the ones with the highest status in your life, and this phrase can be perfectly used to describe Professor Natel. During this special period, Instructor Natel is not only a school teacher, but also one of the main leaders of the Defense Military Staff, directly accountable to Patrick Sara, the Defense Commissioner. The first Victorian offensive and defensive battle on March 8 was led by Instructor Natel to develop a combat plan. Although the First Victoria Offensive and Defense War was a strategic failure, it also brought a painful cost to the Earth Alliance. This also gave rise to a new strategic plan. The Volopolos Operation, Equatorial Blockade Operation. 1. Ensure military strongholds on Earth. 2. Suppress the spaceport and mass accelerator base to blockade the coalition forces on Earth. 3. A neutron interference device that can suppress the supply of nuclear weapons and nuclear fission energy. This operation also laid a solid foundation for Zaft's acquisition of space rights. Buckle. There was a knock on the door from the staff office. Instructor Natel, who was organizing the documents, gathered them together and said, "Come in." Yes. After Eno finished speaking, he pushed open the door and walked in, bowing to Instructor Natel. Report to Eno Kamal, a student of the college command department. There's no need to be so formal here. Do you have anything to do? Instructor Natel is very satisfied with Eno. Especially with Yino's performance today, he was quite pleased. The previous Eno was a machine, so precise that it was incredibly precise. This is a very good thing for low-level soldiers, but it may not necessarily be for high-level command and supervision members. Lower-level soldiers need to faithfully and precisely carry out all tasks. However, senior command members cannot do it. They must be flexible enough and constantly break through so-called data and records to achieve their goals. I have a request that Instructor Natel can approve. Yino hesitated and said. It's the first time I've seen you show this kind of emotion. Instructor Natel picked up the teacup on the table and smiled. Tell me, what do you have to ask? Can you promise first and I'll talk later? Yino is also unsure if his request can be approved. Oh, it seems you have an incredible request. Upon hearing this, Instructor Natel couldn't help but laugh. Actually, it can't be said that it's just a matter of one sentence for you. Yino smiled and replied. A matter of one sentence. Instructor Natel showed confusion on his face, and there were quite a few things he decided on with just one sentence. Don't worry, Instructor Natel. My request will definitely not cause any loss to anyone, Yino assured. Okay, since it's your first time seeking help from me, as long as it doesn't violate the military regulations, I agree to your request. Instructor Natel thought it over and agreed. The 2 adjutants on the side couldn't help but show a surprised expression on their faces. However, the 2 quickly regained their composure. Thank you, Instructor Natel. After Yino finished speaking, he touched a half-concealed paper document from behind and handed it over. Could you please sign a name in this place? It's necessary to make such a fuss about signing things. Instructor Natel had just prepared to roast, but he suddenly found the content and name of this document. You're going to MS training class, kid. After reading the contents of the document, Instructor Natel almost threw a water bottle over. Yes, so could you please sign it? Eno smiled and nodded. Changing majors during this time period is a very troublesome task. However, it's just a hassle. If someone with enough voice gives orders and opinions, switching majors is still quite simple. No sign. I will definitely not sign this word. Instructor Natel repeatedly vetoed. What an international joke. I finally met such a good seedling and still want to cultivate myself as a successor in the future. But now I have to run to the front line to die, isn't that a joke? What is an MS training class? Simply put, it is the Earth United Infantry Squad. Yes, driving the MS may sound impressive, but it still cannot change the setting that it is a frontline cannon fodder. The MS driver is really on the front line after 2 or 8 battles. Although MS has a good advantage over MA in space warfare, and the battle damage ratio between MS and MA has also been reduced to 5.1, that only means superiority and does not mean invincibility. Is it true that Mobius and MA, who are united by the Earth, cannot kill anyone? You just agreed. Yino is in a hurry. It is necessary to learn how to drive MS in order to escape from the ghost place of plant. Because only in this way can one have the opportunity to go to the frontline battlefield and make heroic sacrifices, pretending to die and escape. Take a step back, even if you don't leave. It is also very dangerous to command warships in the future. Those hanging and dismantling warships are getting more and more powerful, so overall it's safer to drive MS. As for what kind of time travel will lead to becoming something like Dragon Proud Heaven, it's all bullshit. Time travel changes your environment, not your intelligence and abilities. I am just an ordinary person, what qualifications do I have to become Long Outyan? There are already people who will end the war. The people who started the war have also emerged. It would be great to just be an ordinary person and wait for the war to end. Why go and play with a group of demons? When did I promise? Don't talk nonsense, kid. Instructor Natel put down his water glass and asked in a righteous tone. No, you can't just play around. Ino exclaimed in agony, is this really meowing instructor who doesn't speak or laugh? Who's slacking off? You're not going out to inquire about my Natel's reputation either. Instructor Natel quickly replied, other matters can be discussed, but this one alone is exempt from discussion. Not long ago, I boasted to my colleagues that I had met a proud student, but he turned around and was about to run away. I don't want face. You have to sign this letter today, even if you don't sign it, you have to sign it. Ino just dropped the blame. There are only 2 months left until graduation, and one less day of training adds a bit more danger to oneself. Currently, Kira Yamato does not have a compassionate gun. If you don't train hard and die from unknown AoE, it would be too risky. The 2 adjutants who were organizing some attached documents on the side almost tore up the documents in their hands. Is Ino Kamal so intimidating? What are you saying? Instructor Natel was numb, and the Ino in his memory was completely different from the Ino in front of him. If it weren't for their identical faces, he would have suspected that he had mistaken the wrong person. You just signed it, it's just a matter of a few words left and right, and it won't cause any loss to you or Zaft. It also fulfilled my driving dream. Yino's attitude softened and he almost knelt down for the other party. Don't make such a fuss out of me, kid. If you don't sign, then don't sign. Instructor Natel has a very firm attitude. He is really optimistic about Ino's future, especially the reversal of the other party today makes him even more optimistic. Capable, brainy, resilient, hardworking enough, and with this shameless personality. This kind of good seedling cannot be folded on the bullshit front battlefield. Sign. Must sign. For the sake of his own life, Ino also risked everything. Hi, kid, don't be shameless. I'll tell you, sign for transfer, there's no way. Instructor Natel tilted his head and gave the other person a back spoon. No, why not sign it? Isn't it possible for us to transfer hospitals on our own? Yino also felt a headache listening to Natel's answer. If Natel doesn't let go, he won't be able to officially enter the MS driving profession, and he won't have enough time for you to practice MS driving. What I'm even more curious about is why do you have to drive an MS? Isn't it good to be a wise general who wins thousands of miles away? Instructor Natel couldn't understand Ino's sudden transformation. Not good, very bad. Yino nodded very directly. With the high combat effectiveness of the future, any commander who goes must kneel. Tactics or strategies, everything is based on human understanding. Faced with a group of bugs that can break the rules at will, any tactics or strategies you have are in vain. And what I want is to feign death and run away early. Who will play with you? Commander. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Conditions. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Conditions. Why do you have to become an MS driver? Instructor Natel looked at Ino's appearance and couldn't understand his brain circuits. How many people begged to come to the command center but couldn't get in, but Ino fell ill and still wanted to run. Instructor Natel, it's not that I insist on becoming an MS driver, but in my opinion, the strong and powerful combination of MS and ACE drivers in the future will definitely become the protagonist determining the direction of the battlefield, said Ino with a firm statement. What kind of thing? Where did you hear this from that cultist? Upon hearing this, Instructor Natel became angry. This cat is the bastard digging at the bottom of my wall. Is MS strong or not? Strong, otherwise Plant would not have been able to stand firm in space warfare. But it's a bit outrageous to say that MS can directly determine the direction of the battlefield. Excellent MS pilots can fight 1 to 5 and 1 to 10. Can you still choose 100, 1000? What is a battlefield? The battlefield is not a one-man show. No matter how strong a person's power is, it cannot change the direction of a war. If MS were really that strong, Zaft wouldn't have brought so many young people into the military academy. Instructor Natel, what I'm saying is true. In the future, wars will inevitably be based on the MS, and under the catalysis of war, the performance of the MS will definitely show a leapfrog evolution. Yino cannot directly explain the future he knows, and can only use this speculative attitude to describe the future he knows. In the current situation where Earth Union is suppressed by MS, they will definitely find ways to build their own MS. You are not unaware of how powerful human creativity is towards violent weapons. With the foundation of Earth Union, who knows what kind of MS they will come up with. So I have reason to doubt that in the future, MS will evolve into a protagonist capable of determining the direction of the battlefield, and MS is not as fatigued as a human body, as long as it is not shot down. It can always have considerable combat power, and I have reason to be certain that in the future, some powerful elite pilots and powerful aircraft may even become as strong as 1,000 enemies. If they are in sufficient numbers, they can completely use their own strength to turn the balance of victory and defeat in a war. Me, would you like to hear what you're saying? Instructor Natel was shocked by Ino's answer. MS defeats thousands with one enemy. Do you think this is cheating and playing games? As a battlefield commander, he is well aware of where the performance limit of MS lies. Even the most optimistic members of the staff dare not say that MS can fight 1,000 with one enemy. Instructor Natel, you cannot understand the possibility of future events with current thinking. In the era of cold weapons, who could have guessed that there would be weapons in the world that could easily destroy an entire city? Yino also knows how outrageous his words are to the current person. In fact, if it weren't for his own knowledge of the future, he wouldn't believe such outrageous things. Unfortunately, there is no such thing as Aslan Sara, Lax Klein. And their existence destined another troublemaker, Kira Yamato, known as the strongest adjuster. That guy can treat a frontal battlefield like a fireworks show, no one can resist it. But all of this has nothing to do with oneself. Now all you need to do is become an MS driver and leave this place where you can easily die. Natel looked at Ino's expression and silently picked up a glass of water to take a sip, suppressing surprise. He did feel that Ino was stirring up trouble here. But Ino's last statement is very correct. We cannot use our current inherent thinking to understand and determine the future development. After all, this is the era of thermal weapons, where a nuclear bomb can cause tens or millions of casualties. If MS can reach that level, it can indeed change the direction of the battlefield. Is the question possible? Even if possible, how long will it take for it to hatch? Wait a minute, I almost got caught up in it by your kid. Even if the kind of MS you mentioned actually appears in the future, what does that have to do with you? Instructor Natel suddenly reacted. I do not deny the possibility of the future that Ino mentioned. But the problem is that this has nothing to do with you. Yeah, what if I were that kind of excellent driver? Yaino replied shamelessly. Instructor Natel opened his mouth, but in the end, he still didn't say the shameless thing. Having this talent in command does not necessarily mean having this talent in driving MS. Adjusters are not omnipotent. I am your proud student. Are you so lacking in confidence in me? Yaino noticed the twitching corners of Instructor Natel's mouth. Do you think you have it? Instructor Natel asked in response, I recognize your talent in battlefield command and overall perspective, but it doesn't mean you also have such talent in MS driving. What if? What if I have this talent? You're not unfamiliar with my learning ability. Ino asked in response. This is really not Ino's nonsense. Due to receiving targeted training in the Eurasian Federation since childhood, my ability to learn and imitate is extremely terrifying. As long as it is not beyond one's ability, one can imitate it to a large extent. That's also why the predecessor stood out from that research institute. Where in the world are there so many unexpected things? Do you think this is making a movie? Instructor Natel was speechless. How could I not have noticed that Ino was so shameless before? Is it because I have less contact with myself? There is nothing difficult in the world as long as you are willing to let go. Ahem, as long as you are willing to work hard. Trust me, what if I am the kind of MS driver who can turn the battlefield around? If you don't let me practice MS, wouldn't you bury a genius for Zaft? At this moment, Ino couldn't care about his face anymore, boasting about his life without shame. Instructor Natel's lips twitched. What kind of brain and thought did this guy use to say this sentence? For the future of Zaft, I kindly request Instructor Natel's approval for my transfer application. Thank you. Yaino has completely spared no effort, and the bull has already blown to this point. It doesn't matter if he continues to blow. Hiss, okay. I'll sign it. Instructor Natel was defeated by Ino's shameless appearance. And this guy belongs to the kind of guy who doesn't hit the south wall and doesn't turn back. Now that the other party is determined to become an MS driver, it is impossible for oneself to control him for a lifetime. Thank you, instructor. Upon hearing this, Yaino's face immediately lit up with joy. She pointed to the location where the document was signed and said, just sign here. Don't be too happy too early, my signature is also conditional. Instructor Natel replied. What conditions do you think? As long as we can transfer to another hospital, everything is easy to discuss. Yaino-hun smiled nonchalantly. As long as you can learn MS driving and escape from the earth, it doesn't matter what conditions you have. It's simple, don't you say you're a genius in MS driving? In the MS graduation exam 2 months later, if you don't reach the top 3, then get back to me and be the number 1 in your command line. Instructor Natel chuckled and said his request, aren't you a genius? Then show me a genius. What? First 3. Yaino is completely dumbfounded after hearing this. What are the first 3 concepts? If I remember correctly, the top 3 are Aslan, Nigel, and Isaac. 2 months to catch up with their 7 months of effort, even if I cheat, I can't keep up, okay. And you think there are only a few of them in the whole school? The total population of plant is 60 million. The eligible population aged 15 to 17 is around 300 to 4 million. Due to the fall of Unius, almost all of the eligible students in the plant chose to join the military. In December alone, there were about 300,000 military academy students in the Colonial Satellite Group, while there were about 60,000 students at the headquarters military academy in the city of Diesenberg. Setting aside members from other majors, there are nearly 30,000 students in the same level who belong to MS driving. 2 months later, becoming one of the top 3 among over 30,000 elite adjusters. Cheating is not like this. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Top 10. The top 10 will have a chance to survive on the battlefield. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Top 10. The top 10 will have a chance to survive on the battlefield. Aren't you very confident? Aren't you a genius? Shouldn't the top 3 be a simple answer for a genius like you? Natel chuckled and asked in reverse. I am confident, not arrogant. The top 3 are impossible, absolutely impossible. Yaino is very clear about his limits. Although I have received elite training since childhood, it is only limited to this. You have to say that everyone is working together at the same time to compete, and Ino has the confidence to try and catch up. But we have to catch up with the progress of the main character group by 7 months in 2 months, even though we are 7 months behind. You should know that Kira Yamato was able to catch up with them because they had an identity setting. The strongest adjuster. Although I also have identity bonuses, such as being trained as an excellent spy since childhood, I am also a time traveler, and many subjects in military academies have commonalities. But this number and ranking are too outrageous. Aren't you very confident? Instructor Natel asked in response. This is not a matter of lack of confidence or lack of confidence. How about this? Is it okay to be in the top 1,000? Yaino changed direction. The top 1,000 can try it out on their own. If you can't catch up with the main character group, there's no problem chasing a group of passers-by. The top 5. Instructor Natel replied directly. In this way, let's take a step back each. If I don't reach the top 500 by graduation, I'll come back. Ino thought about setting a goal for herself. Due to the commonality of some subjects in military academies, it seems that it is not impossible to try the top 500 or something. Top 5. Instructor Natel's words are very firm. Top 500. Top 5. Top 500. Before. You think this is a vegetable market? In one sentence, the top 10. If you don't agree, get out of here. Instructor Natel was also a bit angry, and he even negotiated with me. No, the top 10. I really can't do that. Yaino complained incessantly, but the top 10 out of the top 10 or 20,000 adjusters still spent 2 months chasing after each other after being out of touch for 7 months, dreaming. If you can't do it, you have to do it. Do you think I'm joking with you again? Instructor Natel's attitude was very firm. Top 10. If you can't reach the top 10, even if I use the back door, I will bring you back. Don't doubt my ability. He is not one of those fools who can only see the number of casualties. He knows more than anyone how dangerous the frontline battlefield is. Almost every moment now, soldiers belonging to Zaft have lost their lives on the front line. It is indeed difficult for Earth United's MA to single-handedly shoot down Zaft's MS. The Earth's combined forces and basic supplies are too vast. The total global population is 15 billion. And the standing military strength of the Atlantic Federation alone is several times that of the Plan, not to mention the Eurasian Federation and East Asian Union. In this situation, if Ino cannot guarantee his survival ability, he is willing to lock Ino up in the plant colony for his whole life. It's not his special treatment, but during this special period, some people's lives are more precious and important than others. This. Agree or disagree? I'll try my best to fight for it. Yaino looked at the attitude of Instructor Natel and knew he couldn't continue bargaining, so he could only recognize the almost impossible task by pinching his nose. Anyway, learn to drive MS first. It's not about striving, it's about achieving something. Instructor Natel finished speaking and signed his name on the paper. Get out of here with the documents. If you don't make it to the top 10, get out of here. Yes. I promise to finish. I'll do my best. Yaino couldn't fully express that sentence in his mouth. It wasn't until Ino walked out of the office that Instructor Nadal sighed and shook his head. What a great commander, why is he so obsessed with driving an MS? Instructor Natal, is he the Ino Kamal you mentioned earlier? The adjutant on the side just stepped forward and asked. It's him, I don't know which string he made a mistake on. With a good command system, I have to learn some MS driving. Natal is really tired. If you want to say that Ino's command department has poor grades, it's okay. But the problem is that you got the first overall score and switched to a different major. At this moment of intense war, not many people in the command center broke their heads and wanted to come in, but instead, he ran away with the top overall score in the command center. Well, maybe everyone has their own aspirations. Aren't Aslan and his team also going to the MS driving system? The adjutant smiled and replied. Can they be the same, Aslan Sara? Forget it, don't let me know it's that bastard who came to dig the wall, otherwise I will definitely make him a martyr to defend our country. The two adjutants were eager to say something upon hearing this. Is it really okay for you to openly say such public revenge? However, considering the emotions of Instructor Natal, they only dared to mutter these words silently in their hearts. Ino Kamal, who received the order signed by Instructor Natal, quickly approached the instructor of the MS training class. Are you sure you're not mistaken? Instructor Sally, who is responsible for MS training, feels a bit dizzy in his mind. Ino Kamal, the top comprehensive commander in the military academy, is expected to quickly reach the top of the military as long as he doesn't act foolish after graduation, and even join the National Defense Staff, given the current situation. But it's such a top student who came to practice MS driving. What are you trying to do? Yes. Ino Kamal stood straight. Instructor Sally tapped her forehead and felt a chill in her spine. It is self-evident that Natal has a strong liking for Ino Kamal, and even privately told Patrick Sara that he wants to transfer this graduating class to the National Defense Staff to study as a trainee. This is almost clearly paving the way for Ino Kamal. But now this guy has come to his side. That old guy from Natal won't be secretly deceiving me, will he? Instructor Sally. Just then, an adjutant pushed the door open and walked in. What's going on? Instructor Sally looked over. The adjutant glanced at Ino Kamal and walked over to Instructor Sara, whispering softly. Xiao Qing. Are you sure? Sally's face showed surprise. The deputy didn't speak, just nodded. Okay, I know what to do now. Instructor Sally finished speaking and turned to look at the puzzled Ino Kamal, saying, Ino Kamal, from now on, you are a student of Class 1 in the MS driving department. Yes, Class 1. Yino's face showed surprise. Although the Zaft Sergeant School does not have clear regulations for excellent classes and ordinary classes. But excellent students will be arranged in the top-numbered classes by default. For example, Ino used to be a student of Class 1 in the command department. And the first class in the MS driving department is the class where Aslan and Isaac are located. Yes, from now on you will be a student of Class 1. I hope you can catch up as soon as possible and claim to be one of the top 10 Ino Kamal students in the school in 2 months. Ino Kamal detected the playfulness and teasing in the tone of Instructor Sally. Coach Kelvin, could you please take him to where he should go and also promote his bold words? We Zaft lack such confident and excellent students. Yes. In this way, under the gaze of Instructor Sally, Ino Kamal, who was feeling a bit uneasy, was taken out of the office by Instructor Kelvin. 2 months into the top 10 of the school. He's such an interesting little guy. Instructor Sally has no aversion to Ino Kamal's arrogant attitude. A young person who is still a soldier and has become the top comprehensive commander in just 5 months is qualified to be arrogant. Other students. The next 2 months may be very lively, maybe. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Patrick Sara. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Patrick Sara p. The LN colony was based on the L5 Libra colony group and established civilian and military strongholds throughout the Earth's sphere. The LN country consists of 12 cities, each with 10 Libra-shaped colonies. The number of colonies increases or decreases according to the times. The institution representing the highest authority of the plant is called the Highest Council. There are 12 members of the LN Supreme Council. The two individuals with the greatest power represent P.L. Siegel Klein, President of the Highest Council of ANT, and Patrick Sara, the Chairman of the Defense Department who led Zaft. Due to their different attitudes towards Earth's joint war, the Supreme Council was divided into two factions. The moderate faction led by Siegel Clay and the main battle faction led by Patrick Sara. Not dead. In the office building of the Ministry of Defense, Patrick Sara stopped her movements and looked calmly at the deputy reporting ahead. Yes. The Secret Service officer wearing a red uniform did not explain, but stood there honestly and nodded in response. Specific situation. Patrick Sara continued to inquire. According to feedback from Follow-up investigations and monitoring members, at 3:51 p.m. on the same day, Eno Kamal experienced a serious poisoning reaction after eating food, and was determined to have lost his vital signs at 4:05 p.m. The soldier spoke in brief words of the intelligence he had investigated and organized. However, at 11:20 a.m. the next day, according to the conversation analysis of Sach Treyland, Eno Kamal was out of danger to his life, but he himself had extremely serious sequelae. At 11:50 a.m., our medical staff conducted a physical examination on the other party under the pretext of seeking medical treatment, and found that although the other party had serious overdraft, they were basically out of danger to their lives. Have blood collection tests been conducted? Patrick L.S. couldn't help but become interested after hearing this, as it was the first time he had met a drug immortal. We sent the collected blood and body fluids to the laboratory and did not find any special places, the officer replied. Patrick Sara frowned slightly upon hearing this and calmly leaned back in the chair, saying, "So what do you mean, did you make a mistake?" Yes, according to the later laboratory analysis, the drug did indeed have a fatal effect on it, but due to insufficient dosage and an unknown neutralization reaction in the other party's body, the drug did not cause fatal damage to them. The officer summarized his findings. Has the genetic aspect of neutralization reaction been tested? Patrick Sara heard this absurd explanation for the first time, but considering the situation of her subordinates, there seemed to be no reason to blame too much. After all, he ordered the secret execution without leaving any trace, and it would be bad if the dosage was too high and others noticed it. It has been sent to the genetic laboratory, but no conclusion has been reached yet, the officer replied. For now, let me know when there are results. Patrick Sara didn't continue to waste time on such trivial matters after finishing speaking, but instead picked up the documents on the table. If it weren't for Eno Kamal's involvement with instructor Natel, who was also the top student in the military academy, he wouldn't even know his name. However, the officer below did not leave, but continued to stand still. Is there anything else? Patrick Sara frowned and asked. Yes, according to the latest intelligence, Eno Kamal gave up his command line and chose to enter the MS driving system, threatening to enter the top 10 of the school upon graduation. The officer recounted the recent situation. Can you guess the specific reason? Patrick Sara's eyes couldn't help but freeze at the words. It's a bit unusual to give up the top score in the command department and choose to join the MS driving department, and also become one of the top 10 in the school. This is a dialogue record obtained from the Deputy Chief of Staff at Natel. The officer said and handed over the prepared documents. Patrick Sara opened the document and looked at it without saying a word. After a moment, looking at the contents of the document, Patrick Sara frowned slightly and said, "A very interesting reason. The Earth's joint response, with a MS of 1 enemy against 1,000, cannot predict the future with current thinking." He had heard of the Earth Union's plan to build its own MS, but it has been on hold due to the MS operating system. Has Earth Union found a new breakthrough point? If that's the case, strengthen monitoring of the Earth Alliance and never allow it to have its own MS until we achieve absolute victory. Sara didn't know what Kamal meant by this sentence. But his words did remind him that the Earth Alliance, which has been suppressed by MS so miserably, will definitely work hard to create its own MS. Although I used to be monitoring, now it seems that I may not be monitoring enough. Yes. The officer quickly saluted and replied, "What about Kamal's side?" Sara heard this and looked at a file in the corner of the table, where there was a photo of Kamal's innocent face. Watching the other person's serious, military-like expression and immature face, Sara couldn't help but think of Aslan Sara and his attitude towards him. Everything is for the future of the adjuster. Sara's voice echoed abruptly in the deep and dark office. The officer's face showed confusion. Change to monitoring and observation. Sara replied. He doesn't know what Kamal's goal is, and he can't even be completely sure if Kamal is a real spy. But as long as the other party does not enter the top command of Zaft, now he is willing to give Kamal a chance to prove that he is not a spy. Yes. After the officer finished reporting, he turned around and left the spacious and deep office. The ultimate winner must be us, its plant. At the same time, Kamal, who had wandered through the gates of hell in the college, deeply felt the malice from Instructor Natel. Less than half a day. I am already known throughout the school for boasting so much in the office of Instructor Natel. If you want to say that this matter has nothing to do with Instructor Natel, he dares to write his name upside down. On the way back to the dormitory, Kamal was pointed at by passing students more than once. There's no way, Kamal can barely be considered a prominent figure in a military academy in a sense. Survivors of Unius. First overall score in the command department. Now we are adding a bold statement that we will be promoted from scratch to the top 10 in the MS driving department within 2 months. He has not been bagged by students from the MS driving department, which is considered a positive atmosphere in military academies. After all, you have directly entered the top 10 from scratch in the past 2 months, so where should you put the old faces of other MS driving students? I think I won't go back to the dormitory with you in the future. Saki felt the pointing and nodding of others and exclaimed in agony. Although I used to be often pointed at, most of them were those with kindness and envy. But now, 2-level reversal. Are you the kind of person who cares about the sight around you? Ino asked in response. No, it's not. So you. I'm afraid of being beaten. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Restart Plan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Restart Plan C, July 25, 1970. A military transport plane landed at December's Diessenberg spaceport. Soldiers lined up on both sides. With the slow opening of the airtight gate, the white-clad officer with golden long hair and a white mask left the warship and boarded a dedicated vehicle heading towards the Ministry of Defense building under the gaze of the soldiers. Due to the loss of space frontline bases and the failure of the Nova Offensive and Defense War, there were disagreements among the East Asian Federation, Eurasian Federation, and Atlantic Federation, and they temporarily abandoned the large-scale invasion of the plant. At the same time, after discussion by the Supreme Council, it was decided to convert the resource satellite into a military fortress and transfer it to L5, later renamed Boyas. At the same time, in order to alleviate the logistical pressure on Zaft, the Zaft side has tacitly chosen to stay at the existing stronghold and will temporarily no longer launch large-scale attacks against the outside world. At this point, the large-scale military operations between the two sides have decreased, and there are only some small-scale conflicts between the Earth and the universe. The battlefields of both sides are in a stalemate. At the same time, Obu, the Heavenly Pillar. Restart Plan G, it seems that the Atlantic Federation has been a bit overshadowed. Surprisingly, they have agreed to restart it. The pitch-black long hair couldn't conceal his flickering cold gaze, but Lun Gina Sahak looked at the document in his hand as if he had thought of something, with a hint of a smile on his face. Continuing towards the long-haired woman in the video, he said, "I'll leave it to you. I hope you don't disappoint me." "Understood, but on Lord Uzmi's side." "Uzmi." Before Erica Simmons could finish speaking, she was interrupted by the other person's voice and said, "Don't worry about him. His neutrality is just that we stained our hands on the back and took on dirty work to succeed." A group of people who can't see reality clearly, really think that relying on those grandiose words can protect the people and the country. It's ridiculous. If everything had been done according to his wishes, Ob would have disappeared long ago. Gina Sahak, the heir of the Sahak family, one of the 5 major clans of the Ob. As for the Uzmi in his mouth, it is the current head of the Ob Yuan, Uzmi Eula Asha. Unlike his sister Lund Mina Sahak's semi-neutral attitude, Gina Sahak is extremely dissatisfied with Uzmi's decision. At CE. After the release of the Alaska Declaration on February 7, 1970. Uzmi Eula Asha immediately issued the Ob Neutrality Declaration, declaring that no matter how the situation develops in the future, Ob will adhere to the principles of independence and neutrality. This declaration is simply ridiculous to Gina Sahak. This world is dark, full of all kinds of filth and intrigue, perhaps because the Sahak family bears too much of the dark side. So much so that they forgot what the law of the jungle was and chose neutrality. If it weren't for the fact that the other party had already issued a declaration of neutrality at that time, coupled with his sister's unwillingness to split Ob and missing the best opportunity, he would have wanted to directly establish his own family with the Sahak family. Erica Simmons didn't answer, just silently took a sip of coffee and tea. This topic is not something that a chief engineering designer should be involved in. However, Lord Gina's words also indicate his intention. Sure enough, it was just when Erica Simmons was speculating on her own. Gina Sahak said intently, "All work continues according to plan. Assisting Earth in the joint development of MS and warships belonging to the joint effort, and utilizing joint technology and funding to manufacture MS and warships belonging to Ob during the development process. This is the plan of the Sahak family." In fact, the G plan had already been launched before, but it was temporarily suspended because it did not receive full support from the Atlantic Federation. "Yes, I know what to do now." Although Erica Simmons had some concerns in her heart, Gina Sahak was her direct leader and could only continue with the mission if she had any objections. "I am looking forward to your results." After Gina Sahak finished speaking, he hung up the communication directly. "I hope this decision won't bring disaster to Ob, will it?" Erica Simmons actually hopes that Ob can have his own MS, after all, having a sword in hand and having a sword are 2 different concepts. Will Plant really be willing to see Earth unite and have its own MS? Can Ob really have a place to live as expected after having MS? Alicia Simmons, who didn't know the answer, looked anxiously at the large transparent window not far away. There, a tall steel humanoid skeleton has begun to take shape. When people don't know the answer, they can only grit their teeth and move forward along the unknown path. Inside the Zaft military school, Yino Kamal also welcomed his first MS driving practice class. In the past few days, he only used a simulation cabin for MS driving and operation. Due to the urgency of the war, in order to ensure that newly enrolled MS students have sufficient MS training time and experience, Zaft Military Academy has equipped hundreds of training MS machines. ZGMT.01 Training Type Jin Trainer. The YMF.01B prototype Keen was also the first MS developed and manufactured by the Zaft Army. At the same time, it is also the prototype of the first-generation Universal Mass Production Main MS. ZGMF.1017 Keen by Zaft. The body is 18.45 meters tall and weighs 78 tons. It relies on compact energy batteries to provide power. However, as it is the first generation of energy batteries, there is a dedicated wired power transmission system under normal circumstances. Bang 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 bang. The earth trembles. Due to graduating and heading to the battlefield in 2 more months, almost all of the MS in the training base are now in use. Standing outside the training camp and watching hundreds of giants sprint and move forward, this sense of shock has never been experienced by Ino Kamal. Although I have seen such scenes in my memory, I have never experienced the impact of being light-hearted. I don't know why, tall mechanical products always have an inexplicable attraction to men. The incessant roar almost completely obscured the sight of the steel body, and everything was captivating. On the side, there was the voice of Instructor Kelvin. Aslan Sak, Flight 1. Nigel Amalfi, Unit 2. Isaac Cure, Unit 3. Diego Elsman, Flight 4. Charles Reginald, Flight 5. Carol Matt, Flight 6. Rusty McKinsey, Unit 7. Michelle Emma, Flight 28. Matthew Naden, Flight 29. Giles Arthur, Flight 30. Ino Kamal. Just as Ino Kamal was shocked by the scene before him, Instructor Kelvin, not far away, loudly read out his name. Arrive. Ino conditionally launched and stood up from the ground. You come with me. Instructor Kelvin finished speaking and turned to the bodies of Aslan and others, saying, You guys have free training, but it's just training. No fighting is allowed. Especially you, Isaac. Ha. Without practicing, do you want us to dance in this exclusive venue like those people? Isaac's voice came from the walkie-talkie, indicating that he was not satisfied with the arrangement. Obey orders, Isaac. Aslan's voice came very softly and quickly. Oh ho, I don't need you to teach me how to do it. Isaac. You shut up. Last time I let you win by chance, I will win against you no matter what. Perhaps it was a spelling error. Isaac had always been displeased with Aslan, a powerful and obedient child, and after speaking, he turned around and drove the MS, then walked towards Aslan's body. Isaac, stop it. Playing against each other is also free training. I will definitely beat you this time. Soon, in Ino's stunned eyes. The body driven by Isaac and the body driven by Aslan began a small game of chasing each other on the training ground. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Initial Machine Operation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Initial Machine Operation. I knew it would be like this. Watching the situation between the two, Instructor Kelvin sighed and patted his forehead. You can move freely, it's up to you. These guys really can't control themselves. But anyway, they are all very strong, let them go. Instructor, why do you have to do such meaningless things every time? After all, you knew from the beginning that Isaac and his team wouldn't listen to you. Diego's voice came leisurely. Instructor Kelvin felt a poke in his heart. He doesn't actually want to, but as an instructor, although he's just a teaching assistant, at least he's also an instructor. As an instructor, being unable to restrain students is a great blow to an instructor. But it's okay, as long as you win against Aslan and them in a private competition next time, instructor. Come on, I believe you. Diego. Instructor Kelvin, who was stabbed again, gritted his teeth and said Diego's name. Haha. Diego laughed and hung up the communication without giving the other party a chance to refute. Instructor Kelvin almost didn't go straight to the computer to let them know what it means to respect teachers and respect the way. But this is just thinking, because really can't beat it. Instructor Kelvin is almost 30 years old this year, and his reaction time is simply not as fast as Aslan and his group of 15 or 16-year-old children. As for practical experience, sometimes you have to admit that some people are demons, especially those who are at the top of this adjuster kingdom. A few months of learning progress is enough for other adjusters to keep up for a lifetime. So, Coach Kelvin, what should we do next? Just as Instructor Kelvin was secretly comforting himself, Ino Kamal couldn't help but approach. Aslan and the others have all mastered it. Although I came through the back door, I can't just watch it go wrong. Instructor Kelvin looked at the flickering thirst for knowledge in Ino Kamal's eyes, as well as the light that longed for his guidance, and his heart suddenly felt comforted. Fortunately, there is still a young person here who is eager for my guidance and teaching. Let's go, I'll teach you how to drive MS. With great respect for the instructor's identity, Kevin, who wanted to regain his confidence, pulled Ino Kamal towards the temporarily transferred training machine number 31. Actually, there are only 30 aircraft in the entire class. Or rather, only the top 30 students in the school can enjoy the special treatment of having a single player during training. Other classes can only share one MS with 3 people. However, due to Ino Kamal's sudden shift change, this number increased from 30 to 30.1. Of course, this is not without a cost. Ino Kamal must obtain the strength that matches this ranking in the next month. Under the lifting of the elevator, Ino Kamal saw the real MS cockpit for the first time. This is the output meter, battery residual gauge, speedometer, altitude gauge, throttle valve, weapon selection dial, propulsion gauge, power pedal. Instructor Kelvin explained in great detail. Although this is almost meaningless for Ino, as he had already memorized all these things before preparing to enter the MS training class. However, seeing that Instructor Kelvin is so serious, Ino finds it difficult to interrupt him. He can only continue to listen to Instructor Kelvin's introduction and explanation. Perhaps there may be something he doesn't know about here, but it's not certain. In the blink of an eye, 5 minutes have passed. Ino nodded occasionally. 10 minutes have passed. Ino's lips began to twitch as Coach Kelvin began to explain his glorious history. 15 minutes have passed. Do you know that I used to turn around and kick the Earth Federation's MA away, so you have to remember that even without weapons, our MS can still play. Instructor. Ino couldn't resist any longer and interrupted Instructor Kelvin. Well, I haven't started the machine yet. It seems like you said this a bit too early. Ah. Oh, that's right. You haven't driven an MS before, so you don't know the difficulty of those movements. Come on, let me show you. No, I'll do it myself. Upon hearing this, Ino almost slapped the instructor and took a picture. Did you learn this special cat or did I? Why are you so immature? Okay, then pay attention to your own safety. If you have any problems, please feel free to call me. There is an emergency stop button here. If you have any problems, just press it directly. Instructor Kelvin said, somewhat unsatisfied upon hearing these words. Okay, I will. Ino nodded and then closed the cockpit door directly, blocking Instructor Kelvin from outside. He seems to know why Isaac and the others don't like to see this instructor so much. It's not that the person is bad, but because these broken lips do have something to say. Instructor Kelvin opened his mouth upon seeing the situation, realizing that he still had a lot to say. But forget it, there will be plenty of opportunities in the future. After all, there are only a few demons like Aslan in the entire Zaft. Ino Kamal is already the top demon in the command line, and his talent in MS driving is definitely not high. This time, I must establish my own dignity and status as an instructor. Secretly, with a certain determination, Instructor Kelvin left the elevator. In the cockpit. After receiving orders from Instructor Kelvin, Ino took a deep breath of turbid air and pressed the MS start button with excitement. The previously dimly lit cockpit lit up, and the pitch-black dashboard began to revive. Accompanied by the flash of light from MS's one-eyed head, external images were projected onto the screen inside MS through the head sensor. The human eye typically has a viewing angle of 124 degrees, with a maximum horizontal viewing angle of 156 degrees for a single eye and 188 degrees for both eyes. The viewing angle limit is approximately 150 degrees in the vertical direction and 230 degrees in the horizontal direction. The screen in front of us is also based on the human eye setting, giving people a sense of immersion, and through the screen, a feeling of overlooking everything swept through the brain. Hiss whoa. Looking at the short instructor Kelvin below, Eno made an effort to calm the palpitations in his heart and slowly applied pressure with his right foot towards the power pedal. Woo! With the continuous output of power, the engine of the aircraft roared, and the steel-cast right leg lifted and fell forward. Bang! The tremors of steel and the earth transmitted from below, which was the first step taken by Eno driving the MS. The self-created tremor feedback made Eno's eyes flash with a strange feeling, surging into his heart. At this moment, he felt as if his body had come to life, with steel becoming an extension of his body. Under the gaze of the Kelvin instructors, the MS piloted by Eno turned his head to look at his slowly lifted right hand. Clench your fist, let go, clench your fist, let go. After several experiments, Eno kept his right hand tightly clenched and released, and looked towards the ground in front of the hangar, where Aslan and Isaac's bodies were engaged in close combat. Watching their figures in the sunlight, Eno's left leg began to exert pressure on the pedal, driving MS forward. Bang! MS moves left leg forward and falls, followed by right foot, slowly. Amidst the thrilling tremors, the 31st aircraft piloted by Eno walked out of the MS hangar and stood in the brilliant sunlight. The calmness is very good, it's a good seedling. Instructor Kelvin couldn't help but be surprised as he looked at the feedback in front of him. The balance feedback data of the MS driven by Eno is very excellent, almost equivalent to the balance feeling of a normal person. And this also means that Eno has passed the first hurdle of MS driving. Although the training MS comes with a body balance system, that thing really doesn't have much effect. Because in space warfare, MS is flying and flipping and moving is a common practice. In that case, you would say gravity balance. The thoughts of instructor Kelvin are unknown to Eno. He is currently immersed in the complex emotions brought about by driving MS for the first time. If it weren't for the damn identity of its predecessor and the impending war, MS pilots would be a job that is truly fascinating. Bang 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 bang. A series of trembling sounds echoed across the earth. There, two MSs are engaged in close combat, and the feedback and data obtained from radar information are the first aircraft of Aslan and the third aircraft of Isaac. On both sides stand the second and fourth aircraft. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. This is not scientific. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. This is not scientific. Bang 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 bang. The impact of steel, accompanied by the tremors of the earth. After leaving the hangar, Eno couldn't help but be surprised by the scene in front of him. Under the artificial gravity inside the plantation satellite, two MSs were galloping on the open field. Two solid long swords collided and collided, emitting dazzling sparks. That is the organism belonging to Isaac and Aslan. Although Aslan's personality is not combative, he was trained by Secretary of Defense Sara as a soldier from a young age. Under the relentless pursuit and fierce attack of Isaac, Aslan would not get used to him either. To show a disdainful expression, Eno Kamal. Just as Eno was pondering how to repeat the movements of Aslan and Isaac's body, the noise of the electric current rang out and then cut off, and a somewhat soft sound came from inside the cockpit. Eno listened to the sudden sound and opened the communication system according to the memory process. Nigel. It's me, Yino. You just started driving MS, so if you have any questions, you can ask me. Of course, I'm not trying to teach you, but if there are any problems, I might be able to help you. Nigel's voice was somewhat conflicted and tense. Thank you very much, but I would like to familiarize myself with the machine as instructed by Instructor Kelvin. If there are any questions later, could you please help me answer them? Yino quickly smiled and said. Although Nigel has a delicate personality, his MS driving ability is definitely top-notch. In the current time period, Nigel's MS proficiency may not even be comparable to Aslan in non-combat situations. Sure, then familiarize yourself with the body first. Feel free to ask me any questions you have. After Nigel finished speaking, he hung up on the communication and did not continue to disturb. On the other side, the battle between Aslan and Isaac is approaching white heat. With the disconnection of two current transmission pipelines, the two MSs have been lifted from the ground to the sky. If you want to eat your meal bite by bite, let's first familiarize ourselves with the basic operations of MS according to Instructor Kelvin's instructions. Eno withdrew his gaze and placed his goal and focus on himself. Strictly speaking, the actions of Isaac and Aslan are not that complicated, or in other words, all MS battles are not that complicated. The main test of MS combat is still the driver's reaction ability and basic control ability over the body. MS is different from humans, as there may be differences in strength and speed due to different levels of exercise. The standard for MS to determine strength and speed is the engine output and configuration of the body, and this cannot be improved through so-called exercise. So the main criteria for measuring the combat ability of MS drivers are their reaction speed and their basic control ability over MS. Let me take a look. Take 2 steps first. Recalling Instructor Kelvin's instructions, Eno piloted the aircraft and began to move with steps on the open training ground. Below, watching Eno's movements, Instructor Kelvin's face showed a relieved expression. That's right, Eno heard what he was saying. Finally, there is a normal person. He still remembers the scene of training Isaac and Aslan until now. After taking 2 steps on the plane, I started running. As I ran, I started jumping. Not long after jumping, I started flying. Then after wandering around in the sky for not 2 laps, the guy from Isaac approached Aslan and started fighting. Seeing the 2 of them fighting, Nigel and Diego, who were still familiar with the body, quickly went over to persuade them to fight, and then there was no further action. Because there will be no further matters regarding myself as the instructor. They were in this kind of fighting and persuasion atmosphere, and within a few days, they flew MS up, along with other students who were also influenced to choose that kind of violent training method. The result is that in my class, apart from practicing shooting and other subjects, every free training is either in a fight or on the way to a fight, which makes him, the assistant instructor, unaware of the meaning of his existence. But now it's better, finally there's a normal student who can guide themselves well. The feeling of being an instructor is really Instructor Kelvin was still pleased with Eno's obedience, but when he looked up, he suddenly noticed that Eno's body movements began to accelerate. I don't know when. The MS, who was originally moving step by step on the open ground, started running under the guidance of another MS. Then another MS also followed and started running. And as time goes on, the speed of the 3 MSs becomes faster and faster. Finally, with the detachment of the power transmission pipeline, in Kelvin's stunned eyes, the MS piloted by Eno quickly ran to the actual training ground under the grip of 2 MS. Right, that's it, accelerate. Eno's cockpit heard Diego's voice. Yino, your front and back steps are a bit out of sync, and the pedal on your right foot is slightly stronger. When fighting under gravity, if there is a disturbance in your front and back foot output, it will cause the body to lose balance. Nigel's voice also appeared in the cockpit. However, unlike Diego's viewing, Nigel is really teaching Eno how to drive MS. Listening to Nigel's reminder, Eno silently began to regulate his efforts towards MS. That's right, that's it. When driving MS, you must always pay attention to your body's balance and never let your posture become unstable. The body's reaction speed is limited. Once you exceed that reaction time, even if you notice danger, you cannot adjust your body in time. This will make you easily suppressed by the opponent in battle, which is very dangerous in combat. I understand. Listening to Nigel's guidance, Eno gradually understood Nigel's meaning. This is just like a human fight, the bottom must be stable. What's the use of theoretical knowledge alone? You have to experience it in practice. Just then, Diego's voice suddenly came. Eno, quickly dodge. What? Bang. Almost at the same time as Nigel's voice rang out. The MS driven by Diego changed direction and collided directly. Although Eno saw it, his reaction slowed down a bit in a hurry. Accompanied by intense tremors, the MS piloted by Eno was directly knocked out. Eno, are you okay? Nigel looked at MS lying in the dust and couldn't help but ask a question. Eno shook his slightly confused head and said, "It's okay, it's just that his head is a bit confused." Suddenly, such a sudden moment left Eno completely bewildered. Diego. What's up with you kids suddenly? Instructor Kelvin discovered the situation and quickly opened Diego's communication system. Help him train. Diego replied straightforwardly. Who made you train like this, Eno Kamal? This is his first time on the plane. What's wrong with him like this? But isn't that how we all came here? Kevin's words were blocked directly by Diego. This. You guys are different. Instructor Kelvin held back for half a day and replied. Different. Please, this guy Eno can run on the computer, almost no different from us. Diego asked in response, and this guy is planning to enter the top 10 in 2 months, so it's unlikely that he can do it with normal training, right? Diego really didn't feel anything different from them after Eno got on the plane. All of them will leave as soon as they get on the machine, run as soon as they leave the warehouse, and can also adjust the output of the machine in a timely manner based on external feedback. Even he felt that Eno had a faster grasp of the body than himself, almost catching up with Aslan and Isaac. This. Upon hearing this, Instructor Kelvin suddenly thought of Eno Kamal's actions just now. Upon careful consideration, this guy's talent for learning MS may really be the same as Aslan and the others. But is this possible? A student who ranks first in the command line has the same MS driving talent as Isaac and his team, which is not scientific at all. End of this chapter.